Time for Here's the Deal, and in tonight, Chachi Curl, Dara Parker, and Lee Checkstead. Ladies, nice to see you. I feel like I haven't seen both of you for a long time.
We were just talking about it. We think it's been a couple months, actually.
Together, indeed.
Yeah. Together,
I was
yeah.
in Nicaragua, so I had a good excuse.
Yes,
Nice.
you did.
You're
yes,
welcome.
we'll talk about that in the commercial break. Right now, we want to talk about the cyberbullying legislation passed today, or introduced rather today in Ottawa. A good first step by most people's account. Chachi Curl?
Absolutely, if you are Carol Todd, if you are the parents of Rehtaeh Parsons, a wonderful first step for them to feel validated and feel like there's something that can be done if your little girl, if your child is going through this horror. My concern, though, is that this is legislation that probably wraps up a lot of other things and introduces a lot of other things that maybe we're not talking about around standards of search and seizure, of computers, of other things. Is the test of this legislation and of the law ultimately going to be what we think it is? Is it going to be about cyberbullying, or is it going to be cyberbullying plus a lot of other things? And what happens is when you raise those issues, you risk painting yourself into a corner around, well, does that mean you don't support this law and you don't support, action against cyberbullying? It's like, no, but what else is there? I want to read the law.
Not so many years ago, I would have, come at you and said, oh, come on, you people you overreact and you're worried that the police are going to be with their flashlight going through your house in the middle of the night. But you know what? Given that we've seen authorities abuse their powers,
and there are a lot of things in that legislation that people are already talking about that, like you said, the search and seizure. They can order you to forfeit your computer until they get a search warrant. Those types of things, just in case if they think stuff might be destroyed. And BC Civil Liberties has already come out saying we've got some serious concerns.
It was a 150-page document, though, and only 2 were related to that.
Well, but it's a 150-page document that deals with a lot of things other than cyberbullying, and I think if government wanted to deal with cyberbullying and what's happening to our kids and the dangers around that, and the need, by the way, to update legislation to reflect what's going on with technology, why not just do that? Why append a whole bunch of other things to it?
Valid concerns, but I think that you hit the nail on the head in the end. The pace of the law in terms of keeping up with technology is what concerns me the most. It's a glacial pace, and we're always 5 steps behind. So I'm happy to see some kind of discussion taking place, some kind of legislation on the table.
I think the other thing that would be nice would be money for programs at the kids' level. I think that's something as adults we forget, and we overestimate the fact that we think we're having an impact on them. And really, they're out in their own little world having a good time, not listening to us, not listening to the fact that there's new legislation.
So the Justice Minister comes out and says, I'm introducing a law. It will most likely pass as is, maybe with some amendments. But again, to your point, what does the average teenager care? And just because we have laws doesn't mean that we shouldn't put other resources into things like prevention. We also have laws that say, don't steal things. So why does ICBC go out every year and say, don't leave stuff in your car at Christmas time, your car will get broken into, if a law is enough and it suffices? So I agree with you.
Law is never enough. We were talking about sentences the other day, and they just don't act as a strong enough deterrent. I mean, it's been proven over and over. Let's cross our fingers, though, and really hope in Canada particularly we don't see any other kids take their own lives because of this, because it's just such a tragedy. And, it breaks my heart every time I talk to Carol Todd, knowing she doesn't have a teenage daughter to go home and hug. It's very sad. Let's move on to this home in Vernon. 2 young gals, quadriplegics. They've both been quadriplegic their entire life. This is a private care home, but of course it falls under the auspices of a health authority in BC. And I understand we have a clip, so let's have a listen to that.
It can go up to a whole day where they change you in the morning and they don't change you again till 8:30.
So these 2 women are saying that the staff at the care home have basically said, we're going to schedule your bathroom breaks, and if you go to the bathroom outside of that break, you're just going to sit in it. And one gal says she's already sitting in it.
This is insane. This is inhumane because we're talking about 2 quadriplegic women who can't schedule bathroom breaks. They don't have control over those parts of their bodies. So it was outrageous to hear this.
It was. I thought the same thing.
You have moments where you say, are we really living in Canada? But again, from a prevention perspective or an accountability perspective, I am sure that the Interior Health Authority tonight is scrambling to find out what's going on, and there will be a lot of questions around it. Sometimes, though, it's one of those things where no matter if you talk about laws or funding or wherever the trail is going to be followed to, sometimes you've just got bad actors in bad places. And I don't know the full details around what's going on with this particular care home. No one would go on camera. Should their contract be renewed at the end of it? These are questions we're going to have to find out. But on the face of it, it's absolutely horrifying.
And what was so disappointing to me was the women said, we're afraid to come out and say this for fear of retribution.
Well, it could be also sometimes you need someone like the media to step in and shine a light on it so that changes can be made. We haven't heard from the care home, but maybe the care home is secretly saying, thank goodness this is coming out because we didn't think these cutbacks were a reasonable expectation anyway, and now that people know what these cutbacks mean, maybe there will be changes.
I would have to disagree, though. If you're the operator of a home and cutbacks are affecting it that much, then you have a responsibility.
But who's
as a
making those
caregiver.
Cutbacks? Is it someone simply looking at a spreadsheet and looking to cut numbers?
But it's a private facility, right? This is a private facility.
That's right. If it's a private facility on contract, if your contract is not covering basic care, like bathroom breaks, then you have a responsibility as the owner and the operator of that private care facility to be speaking up on behalf of your patients.
For sure, yeah. It's not the same as going into a hospital,
No.
you know, here. All right, slow kids take 90 seconds longer to run a mile than their parents.
I think we're well positioned if we choose to have children. We're going to be able to outrun them. This is a clever parenting strategy. So,
Except you know that any parent out there would never outrun their child in time of danger. Okay,
I'm not a
Grizzly
parent.
Bear,
You are.
Grizzly Bear, take me. Run, son, run.
Okay, they're kids, and so what are kids doing? Kids are being kids, and today kids being kids means watching TV, watching video games, playing on mommy and daddy's iPad, right? And all of that, whereas the parents are all like, oh my God, my clothes don't fit anymore. Oh my God, I'm getting weight. I'm going to go to a gym.
It's the, we had a fitness guy on and child health person a while back, and it's the, what they call passive activity that they don't get anymore. We walk to school. To and from school.
They don't even really play at recess anymore as much.
So a lot of people focus on the behavioral change, right? Encouraging physical activity. But I think you've got a really important point, which is how we design our communities. That's changed. And we spread out with suburban sprawl, and people do not walk in their communities. And we also don't have the same kind of public amenities that encourage that kind of physical activity. So I think that's a critical piece.
And most of us aren't, mowing the back 40. And but soccer once a week or twice a week doesn't add up to all the activity that we went through.
I wonder if you ask parents today, though, would they rather pay more or give up a certain amount of square footage in their homes in these sprawling suburban communities in order to redesign the way we live in neighborhoods? And that means, by the way, you get less space, or maybe you're growing up in an apartment, or the kids are growing up in an apartment, but they have more playground space. Most parents want to grow up, or they want their children to grow up the way they grew up, and they're not going to want to make those sacrifices or trade-offs.
We got to go. Sorry, ladies, we're out of time. Shachi Curl, Dara Parker, and Lee Checkstead, thanks. Coming up, think BC Ferries has trimmed all it can from its budget? Well, think again. Dermot Travis of Integrity BC has a few ideas. Waste Watch just around the corner.